Welcome to Hatman Strikes Back Daily Boxing News. So Derek Chisora drops and outpoints Otto Wallin over 12 grueling rounds. Let's talk about it. First of all, this fight was fought in a very small ring for heavyweights, which was obviously to Derek Chisora's advantage. He was the house fighter here. This was his show. And Otto Wallin, who is a mover, was therefore at a disadvantage in that regard. Not that he would have won if it was in a bigger ring, but still. The ring size certainly assisted a very old and shop-worn Derek Chisora, who, despite his physical deterioration, still appears to have as much determination as ever. He is a very, very brave man. And so he came out in marauding style, often switching southpaw to confuse Otto Wallin coming in, Wallin being a southpaw himself, and that's something that he did against Alexander Usyk. And it was quite effective in that fight, even more effective in this fight here against Wallin, although the version of Chisora that fought Usyk was way better than the version we saw yesterday against Otto Wallin. I mean, night and day in terms of his speed of movement, his coordination, so on and so forth. But this version was still able to bully Wallin, pin him on the ropes frequently, and tee off with those big, these days, pretty slow hooks. And other than a couple of fleeting moments during the fight, that was the pattern throughout. Chisora coming forward, Wallin not doing a very good job of staying off the ropes and spinning to keep the fight in center ring, although he was landing some decent shots as Chisora came in. And the evidence for that is on Chisora's face. Yes, he was cut from a head clash, but there was also quite a bit of swelling for Derek Chisora there, again from Otto Wallin punches. But there weren't enough of them. Wallin was not proactive enough. I think he just wasn't strong enough, like physically strong enough to find himself some space to get his shots off. Again, when you're fighting in a small ring, you're going to need that physical strength to hold a bull like Chisora off of you. Wallin didn't have that, and Chisora kept building momentum throughout the fight. He dropped Otto Wallin in the 9th round with a big right hand. It was kind of a delayed reaction fall. And to my knowledge, you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, I haven't followed Otto Wallin's career since the very beginning, but to my knowledge, that's the first time Otto Wallin's ever been dropped. He wasn't dropped against Fury. He wasn't dropped against AJ. He certainly wasn't dropped against Gassiev. I don't recall this guy in any of the Otto Wallin fights I've seen ever being dropped before. So Chisora did something, and this is a very old Derek Chisora, a very faded version of Chisora. He did something that neither Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua could do. So what Alexander Usyk said about Derek Chisora being the hardest puncher he's faced, I don't think that should be so quickly dismissed. Because at the end of the day, a fighter can only judge another fighter's power based on what they actually get hit with. If you go in there with a guy who's a massive puncher, but he doesn't manage to hit you with anything clean, then you may come out of that fight with the impression that he doesn't hit that hard. But the Usyk-Chisora fight was rough and tumble. Chisora landed certainly a lot of clean shots on Usyk's chest and on his arms. So he felt that power, and Otto Wallin felt it too. But the shots, of course, were landing clean on Wallin, certainly late in the fight. So he was down in the 9th, but he managed to get to his feet and see out the round. Then he was down again in the 12th. And bizarrely, and this really is bizarre, without those two knockdowns, Derek Chisora actually would have lost on one of the judges' scorecards. Not the other two, but one of them, because he only had Chisora winning 114-112. No idea what he was watching or what he was smoking, because Derek Chisora dominated this fight. And in fact, that reminds me to talk about the TNT commentator Paul Dempsey. I don't think I've ever heard a man talk so much absolute rubbish during a boxing match in recent memory. Unbelievable. He was saying that Derek Chisora is the most dangerous contender out there now. He compared him to George Foreman, and he said, I'm not joking. This is the second coming of George Foreman. I mean, he was constantly trying to outdo himself throughout the broadcast with increasingly ridiculous statements. Seriously, I've got no idea what got into Paul Dempsey. Because back in the days when he worked for Sky, he was actually pretty good. Although he was working as a presenter then, not a commentator. For this fight, he was doing the actual commentary. But yeah, Paul Dempsey, dear oh dear. Unbelievable. So yeah, Chisora won despite one bad scorecard. He was very sentimental after the fight because this was supposedly his last fight in the UK. And interestingly, he brought some celebrity friends into the ring to hold up pictures of 3 fighters. And he says he's going to pick one of those 3 fighters to be his final fight based upon how loudly the audience cheered for each of them. You know, when the celebrity friend held up each picture. And the 3 fighters were Daniel Dubois, Anthony Joshua, surprisingly, because he and AJ are friends, and Alexander Usyk. Now, at first you're thinking, well, that's not realistic, is it? Chisora's a fighter coming to the end of his career, way past his best. Why would he get a title shot against Dubois or Usyk coming off the back of beating Otto Wallin? Well, somehow the Wallin fight was an eliminator for the IBF, not a final eliminator, as I understand it, just a standard eliminator, a ranking match. The IBF final eliminator is going to be fought between Martin Bakole and Efe Ajagba. So this was just a standard eliminator between Chisora and Wallin. So now that Chisora has won, he will presumably receive a top 10, maybe top 5 ranking with the IBF, which would technically put him in position to be a voluntary defense for either Daniel Dubois or Alexander Usyk. I don't really see what the appeal is for Usyk. I suspect he would sooner fight Dubois. And similar situation for Dubois himself, actually. Like, what's the appeal of fighting Derek Chisora? He'd sooner fight Usyk or an AJ rematch or, whoever. But Derek Chisora, I can't imagine Daniel Dubois is particularly keen on that fight. But then again, if they show him a load of money, maybe he could be tempted. But the wild card here is Anthony Joshua. Those two seem so close that you didn't think they'd ever fight. But the fact that Derek Chisora put AJ's name forward shows that the fight is possible, maybe. And perhaps it's more realistic than the other two fights, because AJ looks like he's coming to the end of his career as well. He and Derek sparred a lot back in the days at Finchley ABC. Will we see them get back in the ring with each other once again to fight in front of an audience this time, without the headgear and big gloves? Would you guys be interested in seeing that fight? Do you think that AJ is sufficiently diminished for Derek Chisora to have a decent chance? However you feel about that and everything else that I've said here, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm out. Are you surrounded by mindless bots in human form who adhere to the norm and blindly conform? Who swallow all the mainstream BS and actually ridicule you for questioning things? Do you wish you had more free-thinking individuals in your life to network and converse with? Well, look no further. We're right here. Come and join the Brotherhood of Reason on Patreon. You'll gain access to my weekly topical content where we take deep dives on an endless variety of subjects, as well as my vast back catalogue of podcasts, videos, interviews, movie decodings, and my Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You'll also get to talk and network with myself and hundreds of other people in our members chat. You can enjoy all this via the Patreon app or on desktop, and download all my podcasts in high-quality MP3. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, just like Netflix, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. Just download the app from the Play Store or the App Store, or simply visit patreon.com on a web browser. Then head on over to my page and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. All the links are in the description box below. And just a quick money-saving tip for Apple users. If you purchase your Patreon subscription on the desktop site or on Android, then you'll avoid the ridiculous 30% fee that Apple charges for purchases made on the iOS app. So if you're on iPhone or iPad, save yourself some money by buying your subscription on the actual Patreon website or on Android, because it's a lot cheaper. Once you've made that initial purchase, you can then use the Patreon app on your iPhone or iPad thereafter to access and enjoy your content as normal.